Oh, hello, hello. We are beginning our daily learning in the book of Mishlei, 12 o'clock every day, Sunday through Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. We are in the book of Mishlei, Proverbs chapter 21, verse 21. It is one of the most beautiful books, obviously written by King Solomon and containing so much wisdom. In fact, many proverbs that have become proverbs for society, sayings, wisdom is drawn from here. So here we go. We are chapter 21, verse 21. Verse 21. If someone not only does charity, not only does goodness, but also chases it, they pursue it. They're not just waiting to stumble into it. Thank you to everyone who's joining us. Not only does a person do charity, but they also pursue it. They look for it. Will be rewarded with three things: with life, with the ability to give more charity, and with respect. If a person is charitable in a way that they're always looking for ways to help others, then that person is going to find life, the ability to give more charity, people being charitable to them, and also honor. The next verse, imagine a city that is fortified. You have a city that is completely impenetrable, fortified, it has a wall around it, it has a tower, everything. Who's going to take it down? Will it be the strong army, or will it be the very wise person? So King Solomon says, wise person can come to this entire huge city full of very strong people, and that wise person with his wisdom is going to be able to bring the entire city down. Meaning, the idea is sometimes people think that defense and fortification are all up, it's all a matter of strength, but no, it's actually a matter of wisdom. Wisdom is what does it all. Next verse, you can't emphasize enough. Some people repeat it every single day, actually. It's interesting. Some people actually repeat this verse every day. Shomer pivu leshono, shomer mitzaot nafsho. If someone guards their mouth and their tongue, they are guarding themselves from all of the troubles in the world. It's so important to remember. Sometimes we think that, as they say, talk is cheap, but it's not cheap. If a person watches what they say, they will spare themselves the greatest troubles in the world. That is, the people who say things they shouldn't say is the source of all trouble. Next is verse 24. Zed Yahir Letz Shemo. Someone who is, thank you, yeah. Someone who is arrogant is someone who is arrogant and is very sinful. King Solomon says that path is going to lead them to being cynical and humorous. We associate humor with good things, which is great, right? It's good to be happy. It's good to tell jokes. It's good to be funny. But people who do really evil things often rationalize them by joking about them, not being able to speak about them. They'll say, "Oh, I was just kidding." We'll see later. King Solomon speaks exactly about the person who says, "Oh, I was just kidding." But often people who do bad things rationalize them by joking about them. So King Solomon says, "Zed Yahir Letz Shemo." Someone who is doing things deliberately, then they go and they joke around about it. Someone who does something deliberately. Next is verse 25. We've seen a similar idea before. The lazy person's desire is going to kill him. Because what does the lazy person desire? The lazy person just wants to sit home all day and not lift a finger. So the laziness of the lazy person is going to ultimately bring them down. Because the lazy person's hands refuse to work. Because the lazy person doesn't work and refuses to take action in life and initiative, then that laziness is going to bring them down. The lazy person is always desiring new things. They're always looking for new things. And and the righteous one is going to be willing to give him, but nonetheless, the lazy person can't just continue to take from the righteous. And from the hardworking, he needs to get his act together and start working. The next verse is a also very often cited verse. Zevach reshaim toeva. The sacrifices of the wicked are abhorrent. Meaning, sometimes you'll see people who will steal something and will do something really bad, but then they'll use that money to do something good. Just an example, you have some families that were engaged in the opioid crisis and really caused a lot of deaths. So those same families donated museums and schools, etc. But the verse says, "Zevach reshaim toeva." The sacrifices that are made to God by the wicked, using their evil for good deeds, are not appreciated by God. And so much so, and so much more so when it's done with a sinister intent. So if someone steals a lot of money and then gives money to charity very publicly to clear their name, that is something God does not appreciate. Verse 28, El Kzavim Yovid. The person, the witness of, the false witness will be ultimately destroyed. The Ishomea Lanetzach Yedaber. Someone who abided by the laws of the Torah, someone who listened to God and always kept to the truth, always said true things, that person is going to win in the long term. That person is going to have a longer reign. Next is verse 29. We're almost at the end of the chapter. He'ez ish rasha befanav. The wicked person is willing to show their wickedness outright. They have no shame. They're willing to, not only are they wicked often, but they'll also just show their face with no embarrassment. He'ez ish rasha befanav. And the righteous person is going to do what he does in a sophisticated way, in a thoughtful way, and not necessarily in a public way. The next verse is also cited by the Talmud. It's such a needed lesson. There is no wisdom, there is no advice, and there is no insight in front of God. Meaning, if you see something that is wrong, you should speak out against it. Even Talmud says, even if your rabbi, even if your teacher, even if whoever it may be is engaged in something that is forbidden, is engaged in something that is endangering others, is engaged in something that is hurting others, there's no wisdom. If you are, let's say, for example, the junior doctor in a place, and you see the senior doctor doing something that is killing people, don't say, well, I must defer to them. There is no wisdom, there is no advice when it comes to doing the right thing, when it comes to being God-fearing, and there's a serious risk involved. You should not be like someone else said, or I was thinking maybe it's okay to do this, hurt this person because this or that. There's no excuses. Next is also a very interesting metaphor. Sus muchan leyom milchama. A horse is prepared for a war. If you look at the old pictures of war, the Egyptian ones, the Assyrian ones, and the Crusades, horses are so essential to the war. Sus muchan leyom milchama. Having a horse was the key to winning a war. You couldn't win a war without horses. But, however, la Hashem atshua. Nonetheless, salvation and victory comes from God. So, sus muchan leyom milchama. The horse is prepared and ready for a time of war. Vela Hashem atshua. And rescue and salvation comes from God. The next one is just so beautiful. Verse 22, chapter 22. So we're now in Proverbs, beginning of chapter 22. If you're joining now, you may want to take a look. Really phenomenal verse. Chapter 22, verse 1. Nivchar Shem me'osher rav. It is better to have a good name and a good reputation than it is to have a lot of money. It is better to have grace, to be a charming person, than having silver and gold. So if you have a good reputation, if you have a good name, that's something that's so much more valuable than gold and silver. Thank you. I'm happy. So the idea of having a good reputation is so important. A lot of times people will sort of try and game the system and cut corners so that they can have earn a few more dollars or get another car or whatever it is. But it makes no difference, because ultimately at the end of the day, your name is what goes with you both in your life and after your life. So Nivchar Shem me'osher rav. It's better to have a good name than to have a great deal of wealth. Mikesef u'mizahav chen tov. It's better to be gracious than to have gold and silver. Next is verse 2. Ashir v'rash nifgashu. If a rich man and a poor person meet, oseh kulam Hashem. They need to recognize that they're both created by God. Sometimes you meet someone who's very wealthy and they're not arrogant, and it's good, because when they meet a poor person, they need to recognize they're both created by God. So Ashir v'rash nifgashu oseh kulam Hashem. God creates everyone, and you need to recognize that. Rashi points out that it's talking about a sort of a curse and a blessing. Ashir v'rash nifgashu. If a rich person meets poor people and looks down on them and denigrates them and sees themselves as very superior, then God switches that around. He makes the rich person poor and the poor person rich, and that way they each get to experience the other experience. The lesson on it gives you the ability to experience the other side. Next, verse 3. A smart person, a discerning person, sees something bad coming their way, and they hide. I just saw the other day there was a video of the truck in Texas. One of the trucks in Texas slid off the road. There was a guy that was looking. Boom! He got out in the last second. That's the wise person. A wise person sees something coming. They don't wait till they're hit. They go and they get out and they switch directions. And that way they save themselves. But the people who are simple-minded and don't have foresight, they just stay in their place and often incur the wrath of whatever's going on there. Verse 4: Ekev anavai rat Hashem. Very, very, very famous, very beautiful. Ekev anavai rat Hashem. The thing that follows humility is the fear of God. If someone is naturally, or they achieved humility, the logical conclusion to that is fear of God, fearing God, and that's what follows. That is what follows humility is fear of God, and that is followed by honor and wealth and life. Next is very important this week more than ever. Because sometimes people, when there's a storm, they'll say, "Oh, God's going to take care of me." The cold and blisters of the cold, that's something you need to look out for yourself. You need to make sure you stay warm, and shomer nafsho erchak, and someone who's wise takes care of it. A person can't walk out when it's minus 20 degrees without a hat, without a sweater, without a coat, and expect God to protect them. That's something that a person needs to take care of themselves. I really, really very much appreciate everyone being here today. Thank you so, so much. Very kind of you, very gracious and appreciated. Wishing everyone a nice weekend. We'll be back on Sunday, and wishing you and your family well. Thank you. I appreciate you joining us, and it should be a good weekend for everyone. Have a